Gentlelady yields back. Who seeks recognition? For what purposes the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
I seek to speak on the amendment.
The gentleman is recognized.
There are just a few things I want to correct in the story or examples that were just given. I think it's been dispelled that the vaccine prevents the spread of COVID. I mean, I don't know why we're still saying that. I mean, the CDC director has apologized for being wrong about that. The NIH director has said that he was wrong about that. Literally everybody, Deborah Birx.
Gentleman, yield.
I will yield.
Did Dr. Fauci admit that he was wrong about that as well yet?
I believe they've all admitted that.
No way.
So
they got the vaccine and they got COVID.
yes, they've all gotten COVID. The president himself is contagious right now, even though he's had 4 shots of the vaccine, and that is why he's staying away from people. So I just take a little bit of issue that we are in a congressional markup, still perpetuating this falsehood that was propagated by the pharmaceutical companies that stood to profit by this. They knew it wasn't even true. Their tests with 50,000 people in the trials were designed not to explicitly not show whether it did or didn't stop the spread of COVID. So I'm just offended that we're still perpetuating that myth when virtually everybody has admitted that it was a myth. And the reason we need to acknowledge that is the myth that underlies the entire rationalization for kicking somebody out of the military for not taking the vaccine.
Would the gentleman yield?
I will yield to the gentleman from California.
I can't wait for January 3rd, maybe the 4th, when one of our early HRs restores those men and women, those brave men and women who asked for and were denied their valid exemptions, and we restore them to full active duty, which, by the way, will unring the bell of any question of a general or other than honorable discharge, and I look forward to working with the gentleman on that.
I look forward to that, too. They should all be reinstated. None of them should have been given anything less than an honorable discharge at all for this. And while I've still got time on the clock, I have to mention that the Secretary of Defense issued a statement on August 24th saying that the vaccines that were required and that would be administered would be the FDA-approved vaccines and not a single dose of FDA-approved vaccine, aka Comirnaty in the case of Pfizer, or Spikevax in the case of Moderna. Not a single dose of that has been given to a single member of the military, as the Secretary of Defense specified. And it was his only legal way to require the vaccine for members of military was that it was FDA approved and that the doses that they would receive would be the FDA approved, legally distinct from the other vaccines that they received, and also labeled as such, labeled appropriately. None of those vaccines have been given, yet tens of thousands of members of the military have been kicked out for not taking that vaccine.
Gentleman, yield.
I would yield to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Is the gentleman suggesting that the military engaged in a bait and switch and substituted a different vaccine than that which was approved?
I am absolutely saying that what the Secretary of Defense is doing right now is illegal. We know it. I would characterize it as a crime in progress.
Would the gentleman yield?
I'm going to yield to Mr. Tiffany, who's asked
Yeah, I
for
want to
time.
make sure I'm clear on this. Are you saying they've received the experimental use vaccine?
The emergency use authorization vaccine is all they've received. Not a single member of the military has received the FDA-approved version.
Well, it's good you're dispelling this notion that's out there that they're getting the FDA-approved vaccine.
There are 2 notions I want to dispel, and I would give the gentlelady time to respond to this. The notion that the vaccine stops the spread of COVID. Would the gentlelady like to clarify her comments on that?
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
The point I'm making is that there's activity that service members could engage in that we would not find to be egregious. For example, the
Adultery.
adultery.
You gave that
I mean,
example.
I'm not in favor of it. I think it's a
Right.
sin, but I don't think it's
reclaiming my time. And I think the gentlelady gave valid examples, but the one that with all due respect, I don't think it's valid is to substantiate the disproven notion that the vaccine stops the spread of COVID, and that would be a reasonable a reason to give somebody a discharge that's less than honorable. And with that, I yield back.